Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ruby on Rails guide/tutorial where we're building a book review application from scratch. In this part, we're going to be adding the ability for users to leave reviews and ratings for a book. So without further ado, let's get into this. To start this off, we're going to begin by creating a review model. So to do that, we're going to go into our terminal. I'm going to do Rails generate model. Review. Remember, models are singular, controllers are plural, and the review is going to have a rating attribute, which is an integer, which at the end of this section, the ratings will be represented by stars, where users can click the number of stars they want, and then that will be represented in their review, and it'll also be taken into consideration when we develop the average rating. And review is also going to have a comment, which is text. So each review, a user is going to be able to fill out their comment they have on the book, and they'll also be able to give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. So we have Rails generate model review, rating integer, comment text. Let's create that. And once that's made, we're going to go run the command raty.js migrate to update our database. And let's actually go in and check out the migration file that was created for us. So let's go back into Sublime. We'll check out database migration. And here we're creating a table reviews with a rating attribute, which is an integer, and a comment attribute, which is text. Awesome. Let's clean up the Sublime windows here. And also created for us when we generated that model was the model file. So if we look into our models directory, we'll see review.rb. This represents our review model. So the first thing we want to do is we want to add a user ID to reviews. We want to associate users who create the reviews with that review. So to do that, we're going to do it very similar to how we added user ID to books. So we're going to run Rails generate migration, and we're going to add user ID to reviews. In this case, user ID is an integer. So just to go over it quickly again, we're generating a migration which updates our database, and we're adding a user ID to reviews, and that user ID is an integer. So we'll run that, and we'll run raty.js migrate. And once that's updated, let's go back into Sublime, check out the migration file. Here we can see we're adding user ID to reviews, which is an integer. Alright, so let's do the same thing, but this time let's add a book ID to reviews, because a review is with respect to a book. So a book can have many reviews, and reviews are associated with that book. So we're in Rails generate migration, and we're going to do add book ID to reviews, and in this case book ID is going to be an integer. So we'll run that, and again we'll run raty.js migrate. Alright, so now what we want to do, now that we have book ID associated with reviews, we have user ID associated with reviews, we want to create our associations between the models. So we'll go again back into our model files. We'll open up book and user since we already have review open. Let's fill out review. So a review belongs to a book, and a review also belongs to a user. A user has many reviews, and a book belongs to a user, belongs to a category, and it has many reviews. Alright, so now that we have our associations ready to go, what we're going to do now is we're going to add our nested routes. Now nested routes are basically a way of representing a belongs to and has many relationship. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our config routes.rb file, and we're going to, here we have resources books. Remember, this is generating that RESTful resource for our books. We're going to do And inside here, we're going to do resources reviews. So we're basically putting the RESTful resource that is reviews inside books. So if we look over here and we rake the routes, we're going to see that we now have reviews nested inside our books. So right here we'll see, say we want to create a new book review. That's represented by new book review path, and the URL is /books/bookid, which represents a show view for, or it gets the current book, /reviews/new. So reviews are nested inside of books. In the case of our application, how we're going to show our reviews is we're going to show them on the show page for our book. So book show /books/id, we're going to be showing our reviews right there. Underneath our image, if you go back over here, we're going to have a tile that's going to have all of our reviews, and we're also going to have an average rating right over here in our description, so users can see what the average rating is, and if they want to actually read the description or even read the reviews, we'll have that functionality. So without further ado, let's get into creating a review for our book, adding that functionality. So to do that, we don't have a controller yet for our reviews. So let's go ahead and create that. Clear that. We'll do Rails generate controller. In this case, it's going to be reviews. Rails generate controller reviews. And just like our books controller, this is going to generate a reviews controller, the RB file for our reviews. So the first thing we want to do is we want to hop into that controller, and let's add the ability to create a new review. So we'll do define new, and we'll do create. And the new review, are going to represent review with @review, which is an instance variable, and it's going to get review.new. In our create action, we're now going to define review @review gets review.new, and very similar to how we did our books controller, we're going to pass in review params. So let's go ahead and define a private method for our review params. So we'll do private, and we'll define review params. And if we look at our create reviews, we have a rating and a comment attribute. So we want to make sure we permit those. So we'll go into review controller, params.require, require the name, which is review, and we're going to permit those attributes, which are rating and comment. Alright, so also in the create, just like we did in books controller, if the review saves, we want to redirect to the book show path. So to do that, let's go if @review.save. We're going to redirect to the book path, which is going to be with respect to @book. Now we don't have @book defined just yet, but we're going to do that right after we finish this conditional here. And if the review is not successful for saving it, we're just going to render new. And that. So what we want to do for actually all of these, because even in our new.html.erb view file, we're going to be rendering a form, and all of our reviews are going to be made with respect to a book. So we want to be able to access the @book instance variable in all of our views. So to do that, we're going to define a before action, and we're just going to call it find book. Now let's add that corresponding method down here. Define find book, and that. And find book is simply going to be @book gets book.find by the params book ID. So this is finding the current book that the review is going to be associated with by its book ID. And each book has a unique book ID, so this will never cause any problems there. So now what we want to do also in our create action is we want to associate a review with the current book and with the current user. So to do that, we're just going to run two assignment statements here. So @review dot book ID, this is going to get assigned @book, which is the current book we're on, .id. So this is going to set the book ID attribute of @review to the current book's ID value. And after that, we're going to do @review.userID, Remember, these attributes are available because we created those migrations. And we're going to set that equal to current user, which is the current user who's signed in, .id. Now, one thing I forgot to do actually is I want to go into the Rails console and just show you guys that the review model has those ID attributes. So we'll do review, and here we'll see user ID integer, and we'll see book ID, which is integer. Awesome. Sorry I forgot to show that a little bit earlier, but we're good to go. So with our new and create actions ready to go, now we need to turn our attention to creating the form partial that we're going to render in the new view. So let's close up some of these, and let's go to views, reviews, and let's create a form partial. Remember, form partial is _form.html.erb. And in here, let's use simple form again to create a way to create a new review. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than how we did our form partial for books. If we look over here, the form partial was simply for @book. But now that we're dealing with a nested resource, it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's really easy to follow in Ruby on Rails, which is pretty awesome. So we do simple form for. This is where it gets different. We're going to pass in two different parameters here. The first parameter being @book, and the second being @book.reviews.build. Now it's @book.reviews. This is possible by our associations where a book has many reviews. And right here, @book is getting the current instance of the book, which is another reason why we did the find book before action, so we have access to that instance variable. And the second part is going to build the reviews from that book. So this is finding the book, and it's building reviews from that book. I'm going to do f. Let's add our n down here. And in here, we're going to do f.input. We want to input the rating. Oops. Typos are getting pretty bad. We'll do f.input again. This one will be for the comment. And we'll add one more for the button. f.button submit. Alright, so now let's create our new.html.erb file. New.html.erb. And here, let's just type in new review, and let's render that form. Render form. Okay, so what we want to do to access this actually is let's go over to our console, run rake routes, and we're going to create a link on the book show page so we can just click on a button and add a review. So that is represented by new book review right here. So in order to create the add a review link, we're going to go into our book show page right here, and inside this placeholder column we added, we're going to add another div, and inside this div we're going to add a link to tag. So we're going to add a link to, and this is going to say add review, and it's going to correspond to new book review path. So new book review path, and it's going to be with respect to the current book. So if we add that, the reason I'm putting this in a div is just so the review is on its own line and it's not getting pushed up with other content. So if we refresh this, we'll get the add review link down here. So if we click that now, we'll get to the new review contact, or the new review form. And now that we have the form working, let's go ahead and create a new review. Let's do a 5-star and say incredible book, very well written. Nope. And if we create review, we're not going to get any errors, and we're redirected to the book show page. Now what we're going to do in the next section is we're going to deal with outputting these reviews and showing them for the user. So what we want to do now is we want to output all these reviews under this image right here. And to do that, we're going to start off by creating a new file under the reviews folder. It's going to represent a review partial, review.html.erb. Now the reason we're creating a review partial is because in our show page here, we're going to do this. We're going to render @book, which is the current book, and we're going to render its reviews. Now Now where the review partial comes in is the review partial will provide the structure for each instance of the reviews that it's going to output. So this one line right here, render at book.reviews, is going to render all the reviews for that book. So even if we have 1 or 20, it will render all of those. And this review partial right here is going to dictate the structure of how it outputs it. So in our case, we just want to output the review rating. So we'll do review.rating. We also want to output the comment. So we'll just do review.comment. And now since we have that render right here, it should appear in its own row, 4 columns wide, underneath the picture. So if we go over, refresh, we'll see 5, which is the star rating we gave it, and we see our comment. Incredible book, very well written. So let's create another review and just show you guys that it's going to be looping through there with the most recent at the top. So let's create, let's give another 5-star rating. I couldn't put this book down. It is really a masterpiece. So create that review, and now we'll see I couldn't put this book down. It's really a masterpiece. So we'll see that, and actually the way it's going right now is the most recent is going to be put at the bottom. Now that users have the ability to create new reviews, we also want to give them the ability to edit and delete those reviews. So to do that, we're going to go into our review controller, which is right here, and we're going to add the edit action and the update action. In the edit action, we're already finding the book, so @book is available. So what we want to do also is we want to do @review gets review.find by the params ID. So in the edit action, we're also finding the review. So in our update action, we're actually going to do the same exact thing we did up here for edit. We're going to find the review. So we'll start off with that. We'll paste that in. And now what we want to do is we want to do the same conditional or similar conditional to how we did for create. So we'll do if @review.update with the review params. Remember, when a user fills out the form, they're passing in review params. We're going to redirect to the book path, which is the book show page, with respect to @book. Remember, @book is available because we're finding it. And if it's not, we will render and edit, and we will end that. Before we go any farther, let's refactor this code so that @review, finding the review, is in a private method by itself, so that we can call it for the edit, update, and the destroy. So we'll go down here, we'll find review, and that, we'll paste that in. And remember, review is just getting access by finding the review with the current review params. Okay, with that, we can delete edit. And what we want to do is we want to have this available for edit, update, and destroy. So we'll add another before action. This time the before action will be for find review. And in this case, it's going to be only for edit, update, and destroy. Alright, so now we're finding the review for edit, update, and destroy. So now let's turn our attention to creating the edit view template so we can render a edit form for our review. So let's go into reviews, create the edit.html.erb file, and in here we're going to put a little text here, edit form, actually no, edit review, sorry. And below that, let's do another simple form 4. Now the reason we're not just rendering the form is because if you look in the form partial, we're building reviews for the current book. Now if we did that for this, we wouldn't have the information that the user already filled out for the review. It wouldn't populate the form, and instead of updating it, it would just create a new form or a new review entirely. So we have to create a new form here, but it's still pretty simple. We'll do simple form 4, and in this case we're going to have 2 parameters again. It's going to be with respect to the current book, and it's going to update the current review. Do F, and let's end that. And in here we're going to do f.input, f.input rating We'll do an input for the comment as well, f.input comment, and we'll do f.button submit. Okay, so if we go to our page and we look at our edit form, which is represented by edit book review, which gets the URL, books book ID, reviews review ID, edit. So let's do /reviews/1/edit, and we'll get the rating of 5. Incredible book, very well written. Let's add some more exclamation points. We come back here and we'll see that it is updated and ready to go. Awesome. So instead of having to type in the URL every time, let's just add a couple of edit and delete links for each review. So to do that, we're not going to put it in the show page for the book. We're actually going to do that by putting it in the review partial file, so it's rendered for each instance of the review. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're just going to do 2 more link to tags. So we'll link to edit, which corresponds to the edit book review path, edit book review path, which takes in 2 parameters, which is going to be review.book and review. Since we only have access to the keyword review, review.book is going to access the current book that we're dealing with, and the review keyword itself is just going to access that instance of the review. So we'll add that, and then after that we'll add the delete tag, which is going to be represented by a link to delete, and the path for that's going to be book review path with respect again to review.book, which gets that book, and review. We're going to have a method of delete, and we're going to have a data confirm saying, are you sure? Okay, so we don't have the delete functionality right now, so let's go ahead and finish that up. Go into the controllers, reviews controller, and this is going to be pretty basic. Define the destroy action, and we're going to do @review.destroy, since we have the review being found in the destroy action, and then we'll redirect to the book path with respect to @book, and @book is also available because we're finding the book in the destroy action as well. So if we go back here, we refresh, we'll see edit and delete links. Let's first try and make sure our edit link is working, which it is. Let's just give this a rating of 4 instead of 5. Update that. We'll see a 4 here, and let's just delete that review. Are you sure? Yes. And it deletes the review. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend the next little bit adding more reviews to each of these books, so that when we get to the next section, when we add the ability to provide our rating in a 5-star system and add the average rating mechanism, we'll have more values to work with, and you'll be able to get a better understanding of how it's really working. So I'm going to go ahead and add a handful of reviews, and I'll see you back here when I'm done. Alright, so I went ahead and added a handful of reviews for the books, and one thing that I forgot to do when I added the edit and delete links was I forgot to add the filter so that users who did not create the review cannot edit or delete it. So when we add the filtering, what's going to happen is I'm going to sign in as this user who created the last comment, and then all of these edit and delete links for these first 4 comments should disappear. So I'm going to go back over into our review partial, and just how we did the show page for the book, here we check if the user signed in, and then we check if the user ID equals the current user ID. So let's go ahead and add that. So we'll do if user signed in. Then inside there, we will also check if review dot user ID. Remember, we only have access to review because we only have access to review. We don't have access to @review. So if review.userid equals current user.id, we will display these. So we're checking to see if the user signed in, and if they are, then we'll check to see if the review user ID equals the current user.id. So we'll end that, and then we'll end the other one. Okay, so we go back and we refresh. See, I'm only signed in as this user, so I'll see edit and delete for these, and I didn't create the edit and delete links for these ones, so I don't see them. So for example, if we sign out, we won't see any edit and delete links. See, they're all gone. Awesome. And one more thing, just to show you guys a little bit more of that. This one right here was created by the current user, and this one was not created by the current user. Alright, so now that we have the functionality for adding reviews complete, we're going to go ahead and add the ability to create new reviews with a 5-star rating here instead of just typing in an integer value, because that's not really a good idea in any application. Also displaying the star rating for the rating right here, and then we're going to add an average rating section right up there. What we're going to use to achieve this functionality is we're going to use a JavaScript library called raty. It's a star rating plugin essentially. We can go to this URL up here, and then we're going to go over here to where the zip file is, and we can download that. Now I already have it downloaded, but what you can do then is I'm just going to open up my Finder, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my downloads where it is, and I have it saved as simply raty 2.7.0. And now what we're going to do is we're going to include the jQuery.raty.js in our application JavaScript folder, and we're going to include these star half, star off, and star on in our images directory. Okay, so we're going to go into the app directory, assets, and we'll start with the images, and it's currently blank. And what we're going to do is we're just going to grab these 3, and we'll just drag them on over. And we're going to do the same exact thing for our jQuery.raty. So we'll go over here, open up JavaScripts, and we will pull that in there. Okay, so now that we have our JavaScripts and images in and ready to go back to Sublime and make 100% sure that they were included successfully. Assets, JavaScripts, it's raty.js, and we have those 3 images. Awesome. There is a lot of great information on the official site here, and there's also, if you just type in the Google search, raty.js, if you just type in that and go to the GitHub page, there's also a lot of good information there, and you can also just get the files from here as well. So what we're going to do to begin is we're going to add a div, and in that div we're going to represent the 5 stars. So first we're going to go back to our app here, and let's go into our review partial file. Now in our review partial file, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this review.rating, which is simply outputting the integer value, and we're going to replace it with an empty div tag. It's going to have a class of review rating, and it's going to have a data score attribute of review.rating. Okay. Alright, so with that div, with the class we need and the data score, we're now going to go back into the show view for our books, and we're going to add the script tag that is associated with raty.js. We're going to add it in here, and we're not adding it in the partial file because the reviews are rendered in the show page. So we'll just go down here, I'm going to paste a script tag. Okay, now what this is going to do is it's going to target the class we have over review rating, and remember the partials are rendered in here, so each instance of a review's rating is going to be targeted right here. It's a read-only value because if we go over here, we don't want users to be able to update this, and it's going to basically just perform all the raty, I guess, magic behind the scenes. So if we go back and we refresh, we're going to see that the integer value that we represented as our rating is now changed to a star representation, which is awesome. And if we go back to another book, we'll see that we get the same exact thing. And we'll check one more book, and we'll see some nice stars. Okay, so the next step we want to do is we want to change the new review form to include the stars here and allow us to input our rating value just by clicking on the number of stars we want. So to do that, we'll swing into our form partial here. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap the input here for rating in a div tag with an ID of rating form. And we'll put that inside that div tag. And we're going to add a script tag, and this script tag is going to basically just allow us to enter the review's rating as stars and have it correspond to an integer value for rating. Alright, so I pasted in the script tag, and now if we go back to our review or our form here, we're going to see that we can now enter our comment or our rating here as 5 stars. Now, one thing that we do want to get rid of is our input here, because we're not using the input field anymore, and we're just going to replace that with a simple label, and we're just going to label the section rating. If we go back here, we'll see that we can now enter our rating as 1 to 5 stars, with each star corresponding to the integer value. So let's just create a new review, say 5 stars, best book ever. Create the review, and now we'll see best book ever has 5 stars. Awesome. So that's working pretty well. And now we're going to actually copy that same exact code we used in our form partial right here, and we're going to do the same thing in the edit view. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's copy this ID tag we used, paste that in, and we're going to do the same thing for the script tag, and we will paste that in. So now that users can input their rating as a scale of 1 to 5 stars, we're now going to worry about getting the average rating working. To do this, we're going to go into our books controller. So we're going to open up the books controller file, and the average rating is going to be in the book show page. So we're going to go to the show action, and we're going to write a conditional. What we're going to do is we're going to write if at book.reviews, which is basically getting the reviews for book, and we're going to check if that's blank. So if a book has no reviews, we're going to set an instance variable called average review to 0. So what that's going to do is, if there are no reviews, we're going to assign an instance variable called average review to the value of 0. If the reviews are not blank, average review is going to get at book.reviews, which is going to get the reviews for the book, and it's going to average those based on the rating attribute, and we're going to round it to a half star. And let's end that. Okay, so with that, now we're going to go into the show page. What we're going to do is we're going to add a header and a div tag. Now we're going to do this in the show page here for our book. So if we go over here, we'll put the average review below the author. So we're going to go below the author but above the description, and let's do a header 2. Let's do average, if I can spell, average rating. And below that, we're going to add a div. Now this div is going to have a class of average, let's do rating, average review rating. Review rating. And it's going to have a data score of the Ruby code that's basically just going to output our average review variable, average review. So what this is going to do is it's going to set the data score attribute to be whatever was calculated as average review. So if it was calculated to be 4, this will set it to have 4 stars. If it was calculated to be 0 because there are no reviews, it'll just be blank and it'll be 0. So now we need to add the script tag to the bottom here, and this script tag is going to be responsible for setting it as read only, so no one can edit the average review value, and it's going to basically get us going here. So I pasted in a script tag, and this script tag is basically going to help do all the functionality that we added right here. So if we go back here and we refresh, we're going to get an average rating section, which is going to correspond with the average rating. So we have a handful of reviews, so let's actually go to one that has less. So go to this one, we have a 5-star rating and we have a 4-star rating. So we divide that by 2, we're going to get 4.5 stars, and here we go, we have the average rating of 4.5 stars. Awesome. Now I want to add one more thing here. I want to add a based on the X number of reviews. So for this, it'd be right below here, we'd have based on 2 reviews, so people can see how many reviews it's based on. So let's go back to our show page, and under the div class we added, let's add a span tag that's going to say based on, add some Ruby code, and in this case it's going to be the reviews dot count based on blank reviews. Go back here and we'll see it says based on 2 reviews. Awesome. So let's go into another book here and just make sure it's all still working. So we go to the Steve Jobs one, has 4.5 stars based on 6 reviews. So let's add one that's just a 1 star, and let's just watch it go down here. Add a 1-star rating, and we'll just add a random comment. So there we go. We went from 4 stars, 4.5 stars to 4 stars. And let's delete that. Alright, so there's one last piece of functionality we want to add to this before we start cleaning it up and adding some styling. I'm not logged in as anybody, but one thing we're going to run into is if a user tries and creates a new book. So we go to /book/new. We're going to get an error. Undefined method books for nil, because we're calling the book is getting created from current user. And we don't want this to happen if someone's trying to skip around and create a book. So we're going to authenticate the user. And this is something through devise, and what it's going to do is when you visit a page that you shouldn't be able to access, you're going to get redirected. Another example would be say books/7/edit. You're trying to edit a book. This person is going to be able to edit the book even though they're not signed in. So let's add some authentications. So we'll go into the books controller first, and we're going to do another before action. So before action, authenticate user, and we're going to authenticate the user only on the new and edit, because we don't want to authenticate the user on show because we want, or index, because we want a user who's not signed in to be able to see everything still. So if we go back and we go to books/new, we'll get redirected to the login. And if we do the same thing for the edit, books/7/edit, we will also get redirected to the login. Awesome. Now another thing we want to do is we want to do the same thing for reviews. So we don't want someone to be able to just add a review. So for example, we can do book/10/reviews/new. We're going to get to the new review form. Now we don't want anyone to be able to do that if they're not logged in. So we're going to do the same thing, but a little bit different for the reviews controller. So we'll define a before action. We will authenticate the user, and we'll only do this for we only want to do this for when they create a new review and when they edit a review. Edit. So if we go back, refresh, we go here, and let's just do reviews/new, and we will get redirected to the login page. Sweet. Alright, so with the addition of user authentication, we are now complete with the functionality for our website. What we want to do now is we want to add some layout structure, we want to add some styling, and we want to actually make this app look good. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to go to my GitHub repository, which you can find a link to below. We're going to grab the custom style sheet, we're going to put that in our application, and then we're going to add our layout classes and our custom CSS classes. So let's dive into that. Okay, so here we are in my GitHub repository in our application.scss style sheet right here. And I'm just going to grab all of this, which I already have copied to my clipboard, and we're going to paste that in to the application.scss file. So I'm going to clean up my file structure here for this last part. Go in here, and I already grabbed like the import statements again, so I'll just paste all that in. And the first thing I want to point out is we're using Google Fonts. We're using Laura, and we're using Ubuntu. Ubuntu is going to be used for our headings and our nav bar and some of our buttons, and Laura is going to be used for the other text. Okay, so let's go over and see how this looks just with that styling. Look at this, and let's see. So we have a lot of styling right out of the box when we added that style sheet. So let's go ahead and add the last remaining layout classes for getting this to look really nice. Okay, so let's dive into the show page for books. Since our index page is actually done, we didn't have to add any more classes. So if we click on Steve Jobs page, we want to add a tile here, similar to how this is laid out, and we want to add a nice tile here as well. So let's go into our style sheet, or into our Sublime. Let's go to the show view for books. And what we're going to do to start is we're going to add a make sure we have the styling for our description tile, which is right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a class inside of here. I'm going to call this book info, and that's going to be surrounded here as well. Indent that, put that in. Okay, and we're going to add a bunch of classes to all these. I'm going to show you guys what the styling is doing to, what the classes are doing and what styles correspond to those classes right after we add them. So this is just going to be a book title. And this will be our book author. Book author. Average rating, we're going to give a class of, I think it's average rating. The span tag, we're just going to leave as, actually we're going to add a class of number of reviews. Okay, and we're going to add a class to the book description. Just call it book slash description. So let's go over and see what this looks like now. Alright, so we got a lot of styling. Text looks a little bit nicer. We got a nice little styling here on the average rating. And one thing I need to add is I'm going to add from in front of the author, so you can kind of tell it's from the author and not just the book title. So I'm going to do from. Let's wrap that in a span tag. Okay, we'll go back over here and we'll see some nice styling on that from tag. Alright, so let's go check out what these styles are doing. So we go to application CSS and we scroll down here to the updated GitHub repository will have comments. So I forgot to update that, but I'll update it for you guys. So we go to book info right here. So what we're doing for the book info is we're including that background tile mix-in. Since we're using Sass, we have access to mix-ins, and we're just giving a background color of white, nice border radius, and some padding in box shadow, which you can see right here and right here. Alright, and then if we scroll down back to where we were, the book author, book description. Book description has a nice little font size increase, line height increase, some margin. Book author, again, some font styling, and same thing for all of these. Okay, so with that, now let's go to the review tile. Let's add some stuff for that. So right here, we're rendering book.reviews. Let's actually add a header for this, reviews, so we can get a little idea of what's going on there, reviews. Alright, and let's add a class inside of here. We'll just call it reviews. And inside there, we will indent all of this. And we will add a closing div tag. Add some spacing. Let's refresh. And there we go. We got some nice styling right out of the box. We have that tile again, which is being included. And if we go back to application.scss, we'll see that we have our reviews. We have the background tile. We have some margin, some styling to that header. And now that we have that, let's go to, let's actually go back here. Let's add some styling to this button group, which will allow us to edit or delete a book itself. So let's go back to the show page. And inside here, let's wrap all of this content in a div with a class of links and btn group. Btn group is a bootstrap class. It's going to give us some really nice styling with respect to our buttons. And we will end that div tag. And what we're going to do in here now is we're going to add a class to each of these buttons, so it'll have some nice styling. These are all, well, this one, btn, is a bootstrap class, so when you combine btn with btn group, you're going to get a nice button group styling. And btn custom is a class that I added. Now I'll add that as well. Oops. I accidentally pasted that, so we'll copy that, paste it here, and we'll paste it to the delete button. If we come back over, we'll see a nice little styling here with these buttons. Awesome. Okay. So now what we want to do again is we want to go back to our review partial file, and we want to add some styling to these reviews so that it looks a little bit nicer in this tile page. So let's go to reviews. Let's grab that review partial file. In the partial file, we're just going to add some classes to help structure this. We want a class of review, and we'll indent that. And back out of that. Okay, now what we're going to do as well is we're going to let's add a class to this review comment. We'll just call it review comment. And again, to this button group, we're going to do a nice button group styling. So we're going to do a div class of links btn group, and let's add a div outside of that. Okay, and let's add some classes to our buttons. This is going to be btn custom. And let's copy that again for our delete. And I don't think I copied that. And we'll refresh. And we will see the edit and delete buttons here for the reviews we can actually delete. Awesome. Those are looking pretty nice. And we got a nice little border here. Text looks a little bit nicer. Spacing is a little bit better. And now let's add some styling to this add review button right here. So we go back and we go into the show page again. Oops. And we go to the add review button. Let's add a class of btn custom. And again, this is going to apply that custom styling. There we go. And if we can go in here, and I'll show you what that styling actually is. btn custom right here. Okay. So we're darkening the color from a yellow, so it's like a goldish color. Background of white, we're getting a little border, padding, radius, and then when we hover, we're reversing the color and the background color over half a second. So as you can see, when we hover over, the colors reverse. Awesome. And the buttons in here are a little bit less of a font weight, as you can tell by the text, just because it looks a little bit nicer with a lighter font weight. So that is the styling now for the show page. If we go back to the index still looks good. Let's check out what it looks like over here. Got the back button down here. Check out one of the Game of Thrones books. You have no ratings for that. Go to the first one. We got 2 ratings. With the show page styling done for books, now let's dig into editing the forms and laying these out a little bit nicer. As you can see, it's pretty stretched here, and we want to add some columns to center it. So let's go back in here, and we're going to go to the books new.html.erb, and we're going to surround this in a div, the class column medium 6, and we're going to offset that by 3. So we're going to offset by 3 on both sides, and this adds up to 12, so it's going to center the content perfectly. And that div tag, center that, and let's also add another div with a class of new book form. We will end that div. Oops. Tab that in. Tab in this content as well. Save, come back, and we'll see some nice styling here. Now let's add a little bit of different styling to this book. That's going to be in the form partial, so we'll go into our form partial now. And just on the button here, the submit button, we're going to add a class of btn custom 2. We'll refresh that, and we'll get a nice little styling here on the button. Alright, so that's the new form done and out of the way. Now let's do the same thing for our edit form. I'm actually just going to copy this, so save some time. Edit form, go up to the top here, paste that in. Instead of new book form, it's just going to be edit book form. And we will tab this in. Oops. And we'll end those div tags. Refresh, and now let's go and edit a book and see if the styling is how we like it. Edit, and there we go. We got to add that button class of btn custom 2. Refresh that, and we'll get that styling again. Awesome. Okay, so now let's look at some styling for the new review. Again, it's going to be very similar to what we did for book. So let's actually just copy this. Again, go to reviews, the new form for a book. Go in here, we'll paste that. Instead of edit book form, it's just going to be new review form. Copy that in. End the div and end the div again. Refresh, get that nice styling. Again, we'll head into the partial file here and add a class of btn custom2. Refresh that, and there we go. Awesome. So now the edit form will be the same thing. We'll go in and grab this. Paste that in. Edit review form. And below this, we'll close the divs. There we go. And now let's add a class of btn custom2 onto this. btn custom2. Alright, that's that done. Okay, so with our forms now styled, let's just, one last thing, when we go to the sign up page, oh my bad, another thing that you might notice is when we click on categories, we now have a nice little styling here for the active categories. So if we go to technology, you'll see that that's activated. We got that nice little gold white color scheme. If we go to sign up and log in, we're going to see that these aren't centered. Now this is where generating the devise views comes in to help a lot. We're just going to go into devise, new user registration, and we're going to add some classes here. So for the sign up form, it's going to be very similar to this again. Paste that in, and instead of new review form, it's just going to say sign up form, and we'll close those divs, and we will indent the content, save it, refresh, and we'll get that nice little styling there. And we'll also add a class of btn custom2, and we'll get that nice button styling. And we'll do the same thing for the login page, and then we are done. So let's just copy this. This is going to be new user session. Paste that in. Indent the content. Div and div. Refresh. Get that nice styling. And we'll add a class of btn custom2. And now we got that nice styling. Awesome. So that is all the styling and all the functionality for our book review application. I'm going to do a little overview of all of our functionality quick and make sure we didn't break anything. So when we sign in, we're redirected to the root page here. And let's go and create a new book. So let's add a book. Let's make this a technology book. And this is going to be, what do we want to call this? Do learning web design. Grab a little bit of a description here. Let's copy that. Paste that in. And the author, let's just say it's Bob the Builder. That isn't actually the author, but actually let's find the actual author. Amazon learning web design. Actually, here it is. Jennifer Neardest Robbins. We'll copy that. Paste that in, and let's choose an image, which we have. Learning web design. Awesome. And we'll create the book. Now we'll be redirected to the home page, and there it is. We click on that, and we'll see we have no reviews for it yet. Let's add a review. Get a 5-star rating. Best book ever. Create that review, and there will appear there the rating corresponding to the rating we give it. We can edit and delete that comment, and now the average rating is 4 stars, 5 stars based on only one review. And again, if we add, say, a 3-star rating, so we'll give it an average of 4, we'll create that, and we'll see the average will drop to 4 stars. Awesome. And remember, we can filter the books by category. Here's our technology books, our fantasy books, and our biography books. And our root page will just list all of our books. Okay, so that is our book review application completed. I want to thank you guys for sticking through the 4 parts of this Ruby on Rails guide/tutorial where we build a book review application from scratch. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and be sure to subscribe for new content. And if you have any recommendations for improvements or future videos, please leave a comment below. And thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.